Hey guys, Country Boy John here, bringing you my 1-year review, in-depth review of my Heatmaster G200. I'm going to go over 4 or 5 big points today. We're going to go over fit and finish, function and design, wood moisture, and wood consumption. So those are the points I'm going to go over today, and we'll get started with fit and finish. So for our fit and finish portion, as you can see here, this is after 1 year of use, and I used high moisture content wood, and I will go over that in the other section. But you can see what's happened is we got a lot of creosote and moisture that leaks out the door. My predominant wind is from this direction, so it all blows over that way. But that's what all that is just from the type of wood I was burning. Overall though, I think this looks like a great looking stove. The paint's holding up well. This is a sacrificial drip tray, so that is what it is going to be. The rest of the paint, I like the smooth surfaces. I like the new fill spout design. It's up on legs. The one thing I don't like is how flimsy this door is. It's kind of a pain in the butt to open sometimes, but that's just a minor ticky-tack thing. Good controls. You can, in the dark, you can see the control panel really easily. Super basic. You got your fuses here. You have your cold start button and your on-off switch here that also lights up. You've got your red light here that shows if the stove has been turned off or there's something wrong with it. That's easy to see from long distances. The handles here, very functional, easy to use. Another little ticky-tack thing here is the screw that holds this on rusts, and there's a little bit of a rust streak that runs down the side. Not a big deal, but just a little ticky-tacky thing. Now, the most of the fit and finish that I like the best is here at the back of the stove. It's got a great large door. It's got a fresh air vent for the fan to keep it cooled. And back here is what I like. This door on my other stove was fiberglass bad insulation, and it was always moving. It was always trying to fall out. And this is rigid insulation. All the seams are taped. It doesn't move anywhere. Huge improvement from the last stove that I had. Also in here is everything is labeled. Everything's nice and neat. More solid insulation down here at the bottom. You can see here it's got knockouts for the bottom for your pipes and things to come in. I have all mine coming in one knockout. Wiring diagram, don't use that a whole lot. I have the back panel out because I'm going to talk about the design in this part here in a second. But fit and finish, it's a great looking stove. Not a lot to complain about. I mentioned a couple things that I don't like. But again, the back end of the stove I think is really what you're concerned with as far as ease of use. And I think they got it right with the way this is set up back here. Okay, so now I'm going to go over the function and the design of this stove, of the Heatmaster G200, the G100, and the 400 function the same way. So this is I think they call it a negative draft. In that, what that means is the air is pulled through the system instead of pushed through the system. The fan is at the back, and I'll get to that in a second. So starting at the front, the computer runs the draft opening. And as the draft increases, this motor turns and opens this panel here, allowing more air to pass in through the system. After it goes through the draft, it comes in the holes in the side of the stove and then goes down through what's called the nozzle, which is basically just an opening in the concrete fire brick in the bottom of the stove, and that's where the gasification process begins. So after it gets sucked down through that opening, it comes down here into the reaction chamber. So after it goes through the draft, it comes around the sides, it comes in the holes here, and then down through the nozzle, that opening right there. After it goes through the nozzle, it comes down right into here, into the reaction chamber, comes forward, goes out, and goes back to the heat exchanger tubes. These are the heat exchanger tubes back here. They come up vertically, up here, and then here is the chimney opening. And the fan, it sits on this piece here, which is sitting right here. And this fan, there's your fan motor, and here's the fan itself, spins, and that's what sucks the air through the system and generates your air movement. And that pushes the smoke, or what's left of the smoke, up the chimney. And this lever right there is the smoke bypass, and you can see that in the back of the firebox, and that is what allows that smoke to be pulled out of the back of the firebox instead of coming out through the front door. The fan kicks on, draws the air through the smoke bypass and straight out the chimney, so you don't get that smoke in your face. One of the important things I want to talk about is the gasification viewport. With some of the other designs that push the air rather than pull the air, all you got to do is open the gasification door and you can see if it's gasifying. With the negative draft, you can't do that. As soon as you open this door, the gasification stops. So it's important to have a viewport like this, and they recently changed their design. The first one they had just a simple plexiglass or glass opening here, but it would get charred up. So what they did was they made this design. So all you got to do is rotate it, and when you rotate it, you can see perfectly clearly into the gasification port. And it just stays that way for a few seconds. You let it go, and it gets the plexiglass or the glass over here out of the way so it doesn't get charred up. I went the whole season without having to clear this glass. I just did it right before shooting this video. I'm about to start up season 2, and all you do is take this bolt off, get some Windex, clean it off, put it back together, and you're good to go. And like I said, I only had to do that once, but this viewport is very critical to have. I think it's an option now, but I highly suggest getting it because it's the only way you can really tell if you're gasifying well, and you can look at your gasification flame and see if you're gasifying well or if something's wrong. But this is a important piece that I would suggest getting, and I like the design. I like the way they changed it so you don't have to keep changing that piece out as often. Okay, so for this next segment, I want to talk about wood moisture in the gasification stove, specifically the Heatmaster stove. Last year, the wood that I burned was cut into logs in about May, before the burning season started. So, and it stayed in logs until maybe a week to 3 to 4 weeks before I burned it. And for those of you that cut wood regular, you know that just being in logs, it's not going to dry that much. So I was burning in as high as 40% moisture. Usually it was in that 30 to 35%, which is much higher than they recommend, the 25% mark, as a maximum for burning in this stove. So in most stoves, that's going to cause a lot of problems. In this one, it only caused a few problems. One of the problems was, as you can see here, a lot of this moisture drippage coming out the front door, dripping out of the tray, blowing all over the side of the stove. The other issue is I had some creosote inside the firebox. That didn't bother me that much because the firebox, unlike the conventionals, the firebox is not where the heat is exchanged. The heat is exchanged in the exchanger tubes on the back of the stove. So, one of the things that I noticed was burning that high moisture content, I was afraid of that moisture getting back to those exchanger tubes. But what I noticed was I didn't have any moisture beyond the gasification fire brick. What that means is that U-shaped part that I showed you a minute ago, the ash that fell down in there, when I would go to clean out, it would be caked together, which tells me that the moisture is getting past the nozzle, but that's as far as it's going. Once it comes forward and made that turn, all the ash on the side of the fire brick going back to the exchange was powder dry. There was no moisture in there at all once it made that turn. And that also tells me that once I got back to the exchanger tubes, that there was no moisture in there either. Every time I load it, I hit the turbulators a couple times, and all the ash fell to the bottom. There's not been any issues. The moisture you're seeing at the back on top of the turbulators is from rain coming down in the chimney cap. That's one of the things. I don't know if there's a different way to do the design, or if I should probably just put a rain cap on it, but that's causing that up there to the ash and the rain to mix together. It creates a little bit of rust, creates a little bit of a film on top. It's mostly the ash caking together up there. So I might look at putting a rain cap on it, but it's not a big deal. It's not affecting the design. It's not affecting the function or anything. So that's where I was on the moisture. I had logs. I would cut it, split it, stack it here on my pad, and burn it over the next 3 to 4 weeks. And that's the kind of moisture I was using, and it didn't bother this stove at all. Moving forward, am I going to do that again? Hopefully not. I have a year's worth right now. I put the last piece on it maybe a month ago. So by the time that burns, it'll be 8 to 9 months already split and stacked, not in log form, not in rounds. It will have been split for 8 months. And I already got the wood pile started for the next year. So it's going to be even drier, because does it like dry wood? Absolutely. If you're going to get more function, you're going to get more BTUs out of it. You're not going to waste it heating up the water and burning off the steam. So that's kind of another video I might do later, is showing the difference between burning extra moisture wood and dry wood. But for last season, I burned wet wood. It's not recommended, but the stove took it well. It did fine. Just some cosmetic issues up at the front. Other than the function design, it was great. Okay, so the last point I want to talk about is wood consumption. I know that's a lot of your guys' biggest question, and I'm cool with that. That was one of my biggest reasons for moving to the gasification from the conventional. When I had my conventional, I burned as little as 11 to 12 cords, or as many as 15. There was one of those seasons in there, I think it was maybe 2013, I burned 15 cords. That was a lot of wood, it was a lot of work, and my goal was to reduce it. I wanted to get down to 8. I was hoping to get down to 8. If I can get less than that, even better. But last year, I burned between 8 and 10 cords. I say between 8 and 10 because I didn't have it stacked. I didn't have the whole season stacked out in front of me. I couldn't get it measured that well. Like I said, I was cutting logs, splitting it, and stacking it. But as I was doing my best to keep track, I think I was somewhere between the 8 and 10 cords. Do I think that's going to go down? I absolutely believe that's going to go down for a couple reasons. Number one, like I said, I was burning wet wood. Now I've got seasoned wood that's been dry. Most of it's been dry a year, and it's only going to get drier from here on out. The next year it's going to be even drier because I already have some setting on the pile for in 2 years. The next thing is our usage is going to go down. Last year we had 3 foster kids, and they were boys, and we took showers almost every single night. So we went from 3 to 5 showers a night to 6 or 7 showers a night. So our domestic water usage, hot water usage, was much higher than it's going to be this year. They've gone home. We're back down to just the 5 of us. So I believe my hot water consumption is going to drop, and I believe my usage is going to drop. So this year I've got it stacked up. I've got 9 cords. I'll show you here in a second. I've got 9 cords stacked up, split. It's drying. It's ready to go. And I'm hoping that the 9 cords gets me through the season easily, and I might even have some left over. Okay, so here's my wood storage area. I think you may have seen it if you watched my concrete pad videos. This is the final product. My shed is 40 foot long. I'm a little over 6 foot wide in most places, and a little over 4 foot tall for the height. So as most of you know, a cord is 4 by 4 by 8, tightly stacked, 128 cubic feet. So here is the back end. This is the ash that I bought about a month ago at the end of the pile. One of the things I did is I added a gutter to the back of my shed because that first row was starting to rot and grow mold and stuff like that. I'm going to blow the leaves off. So this is my 9 cords for the upcoming year. And then this row over here is going to be for the next season. I've got about 1.5 cords of locust ready to go, and then I've got some hackberry that I just got to get diced up one more time and split and get on the stack. So this is where I'm at. That's what I've got ready to go for this next season. Okay, closing thoughts. Overall, I love this stove. My wood usage has dropped, like I said, from 12 to 15 cords down to 8 to 10, and with dry wood and fewer people in the house, I think we're going to drop it even more. When I first started looking at stoves, I didn't believe in the gasification design had come far enough, and that's why I went with the conventional. But after 5 years of burning my conventional, looking at the other models, looking at the technology changes and advancements, I believe Heatmaster has got everything right on this design. The nozzle, the fan, the negative pressure, the turbulators, the cleaning, the smoke bypass, the viewport, the control. I mean, when you look at some of the other ways that the heat exchanger tubes are cleaned out, you just can't beat the way this is done. That it's vertical. You got the steel turbulators in there that scrape the sides of the heat exchanger tubes. It's almost impossible to get stuff caked in there and not keep it clean and keep your stove running efficient. So I'm super happy with this purchase. I'm 1 year in. I'm hoping to get as many as I can out of this. I'm happy with the gasification model. I'm glad I was able to move away from the conventional and get this new type of design and reduce my wood consumption. So again, super happy with the stove. I encourage you all to look at the Heatmaster products. They're still changing little things here and there, but the basic bones of the design is superb, and I'm real happy with it.